You and Barry Windham had a fun, but maybe largely rather uneventful run as the new Blackjacks. But you do get to check that box of going to All Japan like you laid out during their Real World Tag League tournament. You're even going to be able to do some of the house shows. And then when you come back, you're working with the New Age Outlaws and you're challenging for the WWF tag team titles. So even though you felt like, hey, maybe, my contract's coming due, I might need to think about what I'm going to do next, it feels like a vote of confidence to have you working with the tag champs. But then a monkey wrench gets thrown into the mix because Barry gets drafted into this, what would wind up being a dead end NWA invasion. So, of course, what they've done on the other channel is with the NWO. Once upon a time, before Vince was battling the NWO, he was battling the NWA with Jim Crockett Promotions. So I guess this idea is born out of Jim Cornette preferring the more traditional way of presenting wrestling programming, and maybe Russo wanted to be a little more cutting edge and things like that. Is that the way you've always understood the whole NWA opportunity to come to be, that, Vince Russo saw things the New Age way and Cornette was always saying, no, this is the way it used to be. And so they wanted to maybe placate Cornette with the NWA. Is that the way you understood?
No, I didn't see it that way at all. I saw the notes you had about me checking a box going to Japan. It was a great honor to go over there and work with Doc and Stan and those guys and work for the big company. But it wasn't checking a box. I was going for a job. There was a big difference. My contract was up. I didn't think I'd get re-signed. And I would have got a job there. It's just when I came back, that's when everything had changed. And you weren't getting guaranteed contracts for people when I left, not for people like me. You got a few people that you signed, they brought over. I think Mark Merrill was the first guaranteed contract, but guys weren't getting guaranteed contract. I had no belief that I was going to get a contract. And then when I came back, the world had changed after the Montreal Screwjob. Now they were worried about losing anybody. And so that's when, ended up getting a nice, it was a 5-year long-term deal, more money than I by far. A huge multiple of what I'd ever made in my life. So everything had changed. So by the time the NWA angle came, I was under contract. They were using me. But when you talk about whether this was something with Russo and Cornette, I can't speak to that. My belief is certainly that it was not, that it was Vince. We needed something to counter WCW. And I'll deal with the issues, the problems with it, why it would never have succeeded, ever. But they had done all these invasion angles. They had done all this stuff. We didn't have any of that. All of a sudden we have Steve that's gotten hot. We didn't know what to do with him because we didn't know he was going to get hot when he did. Bringing in Tyson, we needed something. And I think that more came from Vince, in my opinion. And that's the opinion of everybody back then as well. And those the guys that were in the angle, that this came from Vince to kind of counter what WCW was doing.
So when you get the news, how do you find out, hey, this new Blackjack thing, that's dead, they're pushing Barry in this? Are you wondering, hey, well, how's that work for Barry? And more importantly, where the hell does that leave me?
No, because when I came back from Japan, my answer machine was full. And it was JR, and he was wanting to sign me to a deal. And I've told you the story. I had a horrible concussion. Kobashi caught me with a clothesline just by mistake in the carotid artery, and I had this horrible concussion. I couldn't go to TV because I was scared I couldn't fly. I was all the way up in Maine. I was in Texas. That's about a 3.5-4 hour flight. I didn't want to get on a plane again because my head was hurting so bad. I literally could hardly sit up straight. And so when JR asked me to come to Maine, I said, give me some time off. I just got back from Japan. He thinks that I'm negotiating with him. He went from 2 years. He went from 2 years to 3 years in the same conversation and raised the money. I think he thinks, and now I don't want to speak for JR. He's one of your guys. You can ask him the question himself. I'm just telling you what happened, from my perspective on my side of the phone. I couldn't go because of my concussion. Well, then JR says, hey, we're going to give you a 3-year deal. I'd never dreamed that I would get a guaranteed contract. I'm being offered this contract, but I've got this concussion. I can't get on the plane. I'm scared to go up there. I'm scared that when I get up there, they may ask me to work. I can't work because of this concussion. So I tell JR, finally, I said, JR, let me be honest with you. I said, I've been in Japan for 5-6 weeks. And I've been out with Stan and Bobby every night and Doc drinking. And I said, I'm not in shape, and I'm not tanned. I'm not nothing. I'm look terrible. If I'm going to sign a new contract, give me some time to get back in shape. And I can't tell him I got the concussion. So he said, let me call you back. He called me back and gave me a 5-year deal.
Oh my God.
And now it's more, I mean, literally it's 5 times my 5th year, because it's a progressive deal from the start to the finish. My 5th year is like 5 times what I'd ever made in 1 year in my life. About 5.5 times. I'm in shock. This is more money. I've never dreamed I'd get something like this. So I tell JR, I said, listen, here's what I'll do. I will go down, because back then you had to get faxes, somewhere in town. I mean, nobody that I knew of had a fax machine. So I had some businesses downtown that would take a fax for me. I said, send a fax. I think it was a local bank that my dad used to work at. I said, send a fax down to the bank. And I said, I'll go down and get it. And I said, I'll sign a binding MOU that will guarantee that I'm going to sign this contract. You sign your end. And I said, then give me a month off to get in shape. I'm trying to get over this concussion, because I'm damaged goods. They would have never signed me if they knew I had this concussion. So right. JR said, okay, it's going to be there in the next few minutes. He said, if you'll go down there right away and sign it, we've got a deal. So I went down, brother. I broke every speed limit in the little town, get down, red stop sign, red light. I go in there and I tell the guy, he's my buddy. I said, hey man, I got a fax coming. Stop everything. Get this fax. I'm gonna sign it and send it back. I said, I just got a contract. And the guy goes, really? I said, yes. I'm rich. So yeah, so I got this contract, sent it right back. And when I talked to JR during that time, and he was wonderful to talk to, by the way. JR always treated me fantastic. And he told me, so we got some big plans for you. I knew that point that the tag team with Barry was over. So I went to Royal Rumble, was the first match that I had back. And I was the ultimate guy. Conrad's the worst thing in the world. Like, okay, John, you're going to be there over half an hour. We're going to give you a good push. But then we're going to do the finish for the last 4 guys. John, you can leave now. Let's do the finish. You realize you're just filler. You're just filler in there. But I've got to go about something over half an hour in the Rumble, whatever it was. It was a long time. And I'm worried that I hadn't taken a bump yet because of this concussion. And it turned out it was fine. I was over the concussion. Everything was good. But I rode with Barry that night. We were in, I think, San Jose. I rode with him somewhere down south. And I remember I was cramping like crazy because I was out there in that Rumble so long. And Barry was laughing at me for cramping. But we both knew at that point that the tag team was pretty much over. They hadn't done anything with us. You've got this great NWA champion, the great Barry Windham, and, you're not doing anything with us. There's no reason to believe they're going to do anything going forward.
Jacob Silva. I'm from Bulls Gap, Tennessee. I was looking for a house, and Jason, when I talked to him, it seemed like he knew a lot about what he was talking about, and he was a big help with anything I ever needed. It was my first time buying a house, so I didn't know what I was getting into. It was a good experience. I closed actually a week earlier than planned. Anytime I needed help with anything or had any questions, he'd answer right away and help me learn a lot too. I would gladly recommend anybody. Y'all are a big help, and if I ever go to buy a house again, I'd go with y'all again. My name is Jacob Stimmel, and I got into my first home with the team at SaveWithConrad.com.
NMLS number 2129, Equal Housing Lender. SaveWithConrad.com.